Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the April 26, 2017 meeting of the Lowell Conservation Commission. First item on tonight's agenda is an enforcement order. Richard Schaefer. Violation location is 1 Merrimack Plaza, and it's dumping of snow into the adjacent canal. The violation was witnessed on March 16th, 2017. Yes, sir. And you're Mr. Schaefer? No?
My name is Mark Peterson. I work for Vision Properties for Mr. Schaefer. He couldn't be here tonight. He's out of town. Okay. I'm in charge of the project over there where this violation occurred. And your name is Mr. Zakir?
Yes. Yeah, so my memory escapes me. Why is this even back here? I know.
What, from what I recall, is I think the gentleman that was here before, he had to catch a flight back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
And I think it was maybe a bit of miscommunication between, there was a snowstorm, and I think there was, I don't know if there was an agreement or something, you were working the snow back and forth, and...
No, if you know where our building is, and then there's the canal, then our trailers are here. The little sidewalk that runs behind our trailer belongs to the Parks Department. I think it belongs to us from what I understand, but the Parks Department was back there working. We were helping them move, it was like 18 inches of snow, and our guy took his machine back here to help him and took one bucket, and it got dumped over the rail onto the ice. And I guess somebody took a picture of that, but we weren't intentionally dumping snow, and we stopped right after that. So, in fact, we went back there and took a little mini backhoe, reached down there and got the snow back off, which I thought was, I didn't understand, because when the snow melts, it melts off that sidewalk into the canal anyway. And, but I guess we didn't realize that, one, you couldn't dump the snow, even though Mr. McWhite had told us in a previous meeting not to dump snow in the canal. And I thought he was talking about off of our job site, because it was mentioned in the job where we go put all the snow on our site, and somebody said the canal. He said, no, we're not doing that. But in this instance, it was somebody trying to help the Parks Department, the trolley people, and they dumped a little bucket of snow into the ice, which we got back out for you. And we extend our apologies to you. Mr. Shaver last time alluded to the fact that we want to be good neighbors. In fact, we thought if you would allow us, when the canal is drained in front of our site there, you see 8 or 9 bikes, a wheelchair, hubcaps. I mean, it's a real mess down in there, environmentally speaking or whatever. And if you would allow us, and maybe others, to adopt a piece of your canal, the owners that live on the canal, to go down there when you drain it and allow them to get in there and clean out their portion of the canal, we'd be more than happy to take the canal in front of our new building and from the bridge over, and go down in there with boots and take all the bikes and the trash and the hubcaps and things out of there, so that when people come to visit, they don't see that if the canal is drained.
Right, so that would actually be a really great idea, but, and I really shouldn't say but also a conversation that you would broach with the city manager's office, okay, and Locks and Canals and NL Power. Because they control the drawdowns and the, and whether or not there's water in the canals or not.
Well, we were just trying to show you that we're not.
And the National Park Service, but yeah, that's actually a pretty. I'm surprised no one's thought of that before. That's the first time I've heard of it, and that's a great idea. So, we were kind of satisfied that normally what happens is, one, you're not supposed to be putting snow in the canals or riverways or streams or anything like that, but it's mainly because of salts and sands and debris that gets scooped up along with it. So, that's the main reason why. Okay.
Did we ratify this order the last
Yeah,
time?
it was ratified. It just.
So with that, I'll offer a motion to rescind the order, given we have an understanding that there isn't supposed to be any snow dumping and no harm was done.
Yes, sir.
I would offer a motion to rescind the order.
I'll second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay. Thank you for coming in.
Y'all have a good night.
Have a good night. Moving on to tonight's second item, it's a request for certificate of compliance, New England Power Company, concerning DEP file number 2060708, Project location is A152/I-161 transmission line right-of-way. Yes, sir, if you could identify yourself for the record.
Good evening, I'm Mike Toohill from BSC Group, representing Mass Electric National Grid. We took a site visit, Christine and I took a site visit about 3 weeks ago, and went out to take a look at the replication area. It's about 200 square foot replication area that was built for the 100 square feet of impact due to some new lines that were put in down by the along the alignment, down by River Meadow Brook, down by the old Wang Tower, Cross Point Towers area. So all of the work is done. The mitigation area is built. It's gone through the 2 growing seasons. We submitted a report. We went out and took a site visit, took some pictures, and it's functioning as designed. So we ask that you issue a certificate of compliance for the project.
Commissioner Varnum, do you have anything to add or a motion?
I didn't join you on that particular site walk, but I would make a motion to, what is this, I don't have an agenda. Motion to issue the certificate of compliance on this. I did see the site, and I didn't think there was going to be much impact, and Christine has confirmed that, so.
Anything further to add, Christine? No? Okay. Anything else from the commission?
Just second the motion.
All right, yeah, it's, all right. So motion by Commissioner Varnum, seconded by Commissioner Lovely. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you.
The third item on tonight's agenda is request for determination of applicability, National Grid. Project location is 125.2 Perry Street, and it's vegetation management and waste removal located within the 25-foot riverfront area associated with the Concord River inland bank, bordering land subject to flooding, and the 100-foot buffer zone. And I assume you're here for that one also.
I'm here for also Mike Toohill again from BSC Group, representing National Grid, Mass Electric. I actually have some graphics, Mr. Chairman, that I put up on the board in here. I don't know whether you want me to stay here or to go over towards the board. We can talk
yeah,
about
no,
this
that's
project.
fine.
Is that okay?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, actually, if you can grab one of those and just press the push thing on the touchpad down below and.
Got it. Okay. So this is the Perry Street site. It runs from Andover Street up to Rogers. I've got this actually on 2 boards. I'll flip it around. There's a tree removal that occurred along mostly in the outside of the 25-foot. There were maybe half a dozen trees. I think there were even less than that. 4 trees or something that were within the 25 feet. And there were only a couple trees that were actually in the floodplain. Most of the rest of the tree removal occurred in the buffer zone, some actually even outside the buffer zone, alongside the site. This is an active substation site. It's the site of a former power generation plant that's currently being brought down. It's been decommissioned for years, but National Grid is actually raising the building. They're doing remediation right now because of contamination. And then there's some longer term projects that are going to occur out along this site as well as part of that decommissioning. The tree removal was done at the request of the city inspectional services, and the police department asked that this area, which is frequented by the homeless, and there's a lot of drug use down there. Matter of fact, this year, Jamie O'Hara's with me. Jamie did some of the tree removal work, and they also this year removed about 80 cubic yards, you said? And then a few years ago, you had removed about 200 cubic yards of trash from alongside the banks of the river here as part of this project, in addition to removing the trees. There were, as you know, quite a number. We went out on the site visit. There were quite a number of trees that were cut, some very small, 1 to 2 inch. There were some larger ones. A lot of them were damaged. There were a lot of vines growing in the area. And so it prevented public safety officials from being able to see down in this area from either side. So that was the reason for the tree removal. Sean came out, issued an enforcement order on the tree removal project. We've since stopped all work. except for, as we discussed last time, I know you didn't have a quorum, but we talked a little bit, and we did do some removal of the brush and materials that had been stockpiled up on the site. Didn't do any additional up-branching or tree removal or anything pending the meeting tonight. So we wanted to present what was done out here to you. There were approximately 500 trees between Andover Street, and it goes all the way behind the substation and all the way down to Rogers Street. We GPS located all the trees. I actually have a complete database of the tree sizes that were taken down. The vast majority were small. There were a number of dead, dying trees that were taken down as well. So that's what happened along there, and I guess it'd be better just to have a discussion with the commission. We did do it with Christine, and one of your members did do a site visit with me a few weeks ago out there to take a look at the area. It's important to note that the banks, and that was one of the concerns we talked about, as some of the tree removal occurred on some of the steeper slope. It's very stable. Matter of fact, we had had several significant snowfall and rain events before and since going out there. And there's no erosion due to what happened. There was no grubbing that occurred. It was all cutting of the stumps. All the stumps are still in the ground, cutting of the trunks. So all the stumps are still in the ground, and everything is still holding out there. And the area will grow back in. The idea is to not let it grow back in to the point where, again, the police, public safety officials can't see down into what's going on and take care of some of the problems that are occurring along the river.
So I'm assuming going back to what you were originally saying, that you're decommissioning the property. So I'm assuming there's some stuff on there that you have an LSP on site.
That's correct.
Yeah, and what are the long-term plans? Are you aware of any?
Sure. Actually, I'm working on the long-term project out there. Right now, this is the existing substation, and then if you go a little further down, matter of fact, I'll flip it over so you can see it. If you go a little further down towards Church Andover Street, down towards that area, it's where the old buildings are, which were actually heavily vandalized. They had vandals go in there. All the power's been off for years. They went in there and stripped out every single piece of copper that they could get their hands on. They knocked over all of the old transformers and everything. So the basement and several of the floors of the building were just completely contaminated with PCBs from the old transformer liquid. The building's also old enough that it has a significant asbestos content. So right now there's an asbestos remediation contractor on site. The PCBs are also being remediated. There was testing done, not by my company, by another company, Conoco Engineers and Scientists, but they've done and have been doing for years testing all around the site, including there were some outside transformers back here by the substation. And there are spots on the site where there's contamination, and they have those pretty well marked out. There was one site that we saw that was outside. There's a fence that runs along the back of this property. And just outside the fence, there's actually another chain link fence that's been put up, and it's about a 16 by 16 foot box in essence. And that was the one site of contamination that was found outside of the yard. So this entire site, all the way down to the existing substation, has been tested. The plan, once the asbestos is remediated, once the PCBs are remediated, is they're going to remove this building, knock the building down. This building, as a power plant, used to have two tunnels that went out to the river. One was an intake tunnel for cooling water, and one was the outlet tunnel. So the plan is to dig pits up in the upper surface up here. Look, we know where the tunnels are. Break into the tunnels, put a barrier in there, and backfill with flowable fill right underneath the building, the tunnels. There are three structures. They don't show up very well in here, but there's one basically in here, one here, and one a little further down. There are three structures that are down closer to the river. A corner of one is within the 25 feet. The rest of it is actually, and I think a corner's in the 100-year floodplain, and the rest of it is actually upslope of that. Those were the structures that were part of the intake outlet structures. The plan is to remove those, get all the concrete, because those are actually this nice big flat structure is where one of the major encampments occurs. It's a great place to pitch tents and set up camp down there. Years ago, they put a new concrete top on top of it because they were afraid of people falling into it. And so they created a beautiful platform down there. One of the others had the roof caved in. We walked down there, had to be careful that we didn't fall down through it. So they want to take those down and then do a bank restoration program. And that's part of my job out there as the ecologist, is to do plantings. We're going to do some grading and planting in that area to restore those 3 areas of the bank.
A beautiful location for a riverfront high school, huh? I stuck my foot in that one.
Well, there's kayaking that occurs out here. in
Oh,
Hanover,
it's-
too. You know,
yeah,
this is, I mean, this is a pretty swift
Yeah.
section of the
So,
river.
okay, so I'm pretty familiar with the site, and, you know, obviously, because of the steep embankment, we were concerned about, you know, taking away the stabilization that is naturally there.
Right.
Okay, so I know Commissioner Varnum went out there recently, so do you have anything to report?
I had not been to the site before we walked it with 3 representatives from National Grid. I did not see the site before the trees were taken down, in other words. The tree cutting appears to have been done in a very clean manner. In other words, there was not a lot of slash and debris left all over the place. The smaller branches had already been chipped, I presume, and the larger pieces of limbs and trunk were piled in very neat piles, and I think probably have since been taken away,
I'm sorry.
the bigger wood.
Some of the bigger wood is still there, and it's in the
Oh,
process
okay.
of being removed, yes.
Okay, I was concerned about the steep bank, but as, is it Bill?
Mike.
Mike. As Mike said, very few of the trees were actually cut below the top of that steep drop-off area. And the stumps have been left in place. There might have been one stump that was a little bit iffy, that was sort of at an angle there. We talked about maybe letting the stumps resprout, and the smaller trees resprout, and this would continue to hold the bank, at least, hopefully. Taking out the structures that Mike just spoke about is going to require, I believe, additional tree cutting, which I hope we would approve on a tree-by-tree basis and take the least invasive route as far as eliminating trees to get that work accomplished. There is a considerable number of invasives, particularly in one area, that are still there that I think you would probably like to continue to maintain by mowing or something to keep them from coming back. And I can imagine that they probably engulfed a lot of the trees that were there and,
Correct.
and probably compromised their health. So continuing to cut where the bittersweet is, I think would be a good idea. It was a little bit back from the bank, the biggest patch that I saw. I would be interested in not having anything done in the 25-foot riverfront area without coming back to us here. And I know your work down on the, along the river is going to require probably a notice of intent.
We'll be doing a notice of intent for that,
Right.
yes, correct.
And I would think that probably even a 50-foot area should be a no disturb zone from this point on. You don't have it on this particular map that I'm looking at, the 50-foot, but we generally, under our wetlands ordinance, we talk about a 50-foot no disturb zone along the resource. So that would give the 25-foot plus a little more of protection from further cutting, and I know that's going to grow back probably pretty fast. I did hear talk about a bike trail, and I'm kind of wanting to hear about that part of it, because I know there's a trail on the other side of the river that's being being built out. So I didn't feel that there was any real lasting damage done by this. Of course, we would have rather had the project before us before the fact rather than after. But I think with the condition that any further work would come in with a request for determination or a notice of intent, should it be needed, and then decide should the work need a notice of intent and deal with it from that point on, I think is probably going to be adequate to protect this site going forward.
Commissioner Lovely?
No comments other than based on where we're at. I mean, I think this site might be one where we would issue a -3 determination, for the project, meaning obviously that there's jurisdiction, but the work that was done, didn't have an adverse impact on the resource. So I'll wait till the rest of my colleagues talk, but I think that's probably the direction we're going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anything else from the commission? Commissioner Beardron?
Yeah, so the map you have right here, those pink dots, those are the trees that have already been removed?
Correct.
Okay, and then this RDA is for additional tree removal, or you guys all
No,
completed?
this is an RDA in response to an enforcement order that
Okay.
was issued for this tree removal. I do have 11 by 17 graphics if you want it, that has all the pink
Have the
dots
pink,
on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the maps that we have, the purple hashing, that was like the cutting, so I'm assuming that's just the limits of,
That was the limits of cutting, and then one of the requests that was made to actually go out and locate,
Locate
count the
all.
trees and locate the trees.
Yeah.
Which we did.
thank you, that probably costs a little bit of money?
It took a little time.
Yeah? Okay, and then the waste, thank you so
I
much.
have some for all the commissioners.
And then the waste removal too, that's completed, right?
That's completed.
Okay, so everything's completed, this is just
Right,
an
Jamie, is
after.
there any, there's no additional work? Jamie O'Hara.
The work that we have, we still have wood, as you saw, piled up neatly. We have a little bit of brush still clean up to do. What's happening now with the warm weather? The trespassers are coming back onto the property.
Yeah,
They're dragging, they drag everything, couches, mattresses, but more importantly, needles. We're finding a lot of fresh needles on the site, and that's one of the reasons why Doug Wellington from National Grid, who's the supervisor of the site, is here tonight, as well as there are two neighbors on Perry Street who are here to support the efforts. God forbid children walk the site. It's a beautiful site, as you mentioned, along the river. But the concern was to make it a safe site, or as safe as possible for people who will walk it, obviously for the police and fire department who have gone down there numerous times. We were working at opening up the canopy to reduce, because they hide in the vegetation. By removing the trees that we removed, and the hopes were to limb the trees to eliminate, again, some of the canopy to allow visibility so they don't want to hide in the trees. There are no trees, the tree's there, but the canopy isn't there. It's higher.
you had mentioned last time that there is a fence around it, but they just cut it?
Yeah, they as fast as we repair the fence, they will cut the fence. There are some areas that they can walk in, but it's been fenced. There are signs up that say no trespassing. And again, the police go in there on a regular basis, but the trespassers, it's of no concern to them what they do, and we just have to be counterproductive to try to keep them off the site and keep the site clean.
Okay, so there's no plan for that, there's just an ongoing problem?
It's been an ongoing issue for National Grid, and being a good neighbor and trying to work with the city and the neighbors. The neighbors are thrilled that the site is kept
It's
clean.
cleaned up, yeah. Is the plan when you guys do demolition of the building to sell the site at some point? or-
No,
No,
no. National Grid is I don't know what they're gonna use it for, but they're retaining the site right
they'll
now.
always have that, okay.
Yeah, because there'll probably be an activity use limitation placed on parts of the site. And so that limits the reusability of the site. And there's an active substation here. So right now, the plan is for National Grid to retain the site.
Okay.
And then the plan in removing the structures down on the slope is the structures provide that nice flat break in the slope where the encampments occur. We want to take those out and restore the slope back all the way down to the river.
Okay.
Not go all the way down, but take the concrete out that forms that flat surface, so it'll become less enticing.
Okay. We can say definitely do a notice of intent for that.
Oh yeah, we're doing a notice of intent for that.
Okay. I have no further questions, yeah.
Isn't there there's also a power cable or gas line that goes from that property too, isn't there, that goes under the Concord?
There's one that I know of that runs parallel to the Concord River, and it's not a National Grid line. We think it's an old hydroelectric line.
Okay. Because we were on the site, I would say a good 5 to 8 years ago for the similar issue. And I remember a representative from the company pointed out there was a utility easement that went under the Concord.
That could well be.
There was some markings.
I do know there's an exposed line in the river, which you can see at low water, which runs parallel to the river.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, Commissioner Dillon?
Do you have a timeline at all for this project, how long it will take to remove the building, remove all the contaminants?
Right now, they're in the process of doing the asbestos abatement, and so depending upon how long it takes them to do that and the PCBs, we can't go in there with civil-type work until they remediate that to the satisfaction of DEP.
So it'll probably be like
It's going to be another year. I've been working on this for 2 years already. It'll be another year,
Okay.
probably.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Commissioner McDonough? All right. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this request for determination of applicability? Yes, Jane, come on up.
Jane Calvin with the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. We've been working closely with National Grid on this property in regards to the activity use limitation that's currently in negotiation and the sites of contamination. Because of the Greenways route through the top of bank along that entire length of that property. You're correct, there is a cable that goes out. There's a pinch point there where we have to be careful with the trail to make sure that we don't dig and we don't layer and we have to be careful of the power cables overhead as well too. So, and folks from National Grid have been working very closely with the city's engineers from Brown, Richardson, and Rowe. And I know that they've been very interested and have commented on all the tree removal that happened here. I would like to ask that in future notice of intent and future activity regarding the decommissioning or the removal of the concrete pieces, that the commission is very aware of what's happening as far as the design, because the design for the greenway is nearly complete for that segment of the property. And this is the first I've heard of the concrete being removed and the bank restoration. And that's right around an area where we have this pinch point. And if there's going to be bank restoration or more tree removal in the future, like this tree removal, but it would have been great if some of it was lined up with the actual trail route that's already lined up. The state has been involved with identifying where some of the points of new testing that needed to be done for the greenway. So there's been a lot of communication, a lot of back and forth. So I would just ask that as this moves forward, that there's continued communication between the ecologists on the team and the real estate and the city's engineers that are working on the project to make sure that we're all in sync with the timing for this. Any other questions about the Greenway route?
Could I ask a question? That's
Sure.
okay? Has the Greenway Committee done its filing with the commission yet? Because we'd like to be able to dovetail some of that.
Yeah, that would be great. The Brown, Richardson, and Rowe is the design team, and they would be doing that filing in partnership with the city.
Okay, and they have is there a schedule for that you're aware of?
I don't think that schedule has been proposed yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But I'd be happy to put you in touch with,
be
their
great.
design person that's been working primarily with Steve Toll,
Oh, okay, thank you.
okay?
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Jane. Is there anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns regarding this RDA? Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing none and hearing none,
I'll make a motion to issue a -3 determination.
by Commissioner Beardron, seconded by Commissioner Lovely.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Okay, so, thank you. Moving on to tonight's fourth item is an enforcement order, Antonio Viola, violation location 10 Tupi Lane. It's regarding tree removal without a permit within a 100-foot buffer zone of vegetated wetlands. Yes, Mr. Viola. So I understand that you have a surveyor?
I have a scientist, wetland scientist
Right.
working on the case, and a surveyor too, yeah.
Okay.
An engineer, yeah.
Yeah, and they had already, they've already submitted some information, but I understand that we're pending even some more information coming from,
Yes, what we did, we put the fence and the tub to prevent any erosion, and he do the monitoring every week. And until now, we find no erosion. It's a plan, this is not to just restore the site, but make it better. So you want to put some native tree, I guess, plant, whatever they call. So that's what they're working on right now.
okay, all right. So, I mean, I'm satisfied that things are progressing, and
Oh, yeah, no,
that's the big thing.
Yeah,
So I'm going to open this up if there's any questions from the commission, okay? So why don't you just
Yeah.
hang on?
Were you going to submit some kind of a plan at some point of
yes.
the lot?
yes, we have the engineering firm working right now. The only thing they don't finish yet, so yeah, I think anytime soon, maybe next week, we're gonna be able to do some, to have it, yeah.
Okay, so on that plan, I would like to see the wetland flagging.
It's already flagged.
It's flagged on the
Yep.
site, but on the plan.
Oh, okay,
I'd like
yep.
to see where the flags are.
Yep,
I looked at the site this past week,
Yep.
and 2 or 3 of the wetland flags were apparently tied on to trees that got cut down, so there's a gap in there as to where the wetland is.
okay,
This would be on the side of the wetland that you cleared.
okay.
So I'd like to see those replaced
Oh, no
somehow.
problem, sure.
There is a drainage easement that shows up. I don't know if anyone pointed that out to you. There's a drainage easement on the lot from
Yeah.
back in 1990 when it was laid out. And that would be helpful to put that drainage easement on your plan as well.
Yeah, the one thing, I think the drainage belongs to the city, and it's clogged on both sides, so I don't want to do any work that's
Say
create more.
say that again, please.
The drain that goes under the bridge, those are 2 pipes.
The drain goes under the road, right?
Yeah, they're all clogged on both sides. So I think the other property belongs to the city. So
Yeah.
I don't want to do any work over there. I mean, otherwise I'll clean it, no problem.
Well, this is actually a drainage easement, which means
Yes.
that it should be left clear without work proposed in it.
No, it's full of debris. That's what I tried to tell you. So the water won't drain because it's clogged on both sides.
Well, that's something we could talk about in
Oh, yeah.
going down the road,
Yeah.
but, and just for your plans point here.
Sure.
On the site along the wetland line, there are still, and I suppose you we're waiting for permission from us, but there are still a lot of branches
We want to clean everything.
lying there.
Yep.
And there's a lot of chipped wood, some of it maybe 8, 10 inches deep, that I'm not sure should be lying, adjacent to a wetland.
When you give us the permission to do, we clean everything. It's no issue there. So.
Okay, well, we're waiting to hear the proposal from
Yeah.
you on how to get this lot back into shape.
Yeah,
So those were just my initial observations of the lot, the wetland flags that were missing, the chips, the brush that's still lying on the ground within the resource.
I mean, you want us to clean the branch now, or you want to wait? I mean, it's up to you. I mean, whatever you want to do is fine with me. I mean,
Well, I think we'll let the rest of the commission talk about that. I'm not sure we've given you permission to do any work
Yeah.
at the moment. We're waiting to hear what your plan is.
okay.
Yeah, so I think Commissioner Varnum's comment about about the drainage easement,
Yeah.
it's that whether it's clogged or not, we can address that.
Yeah.
You know, what she really wants you to do is to have your surveyor show it on the plan.
They gotta
Okay.
show everything. They gotta show the sewer line, the gas line, everything. Gotta be
Right.
shown on the plan. Yes.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Lovely?
No comments, other than, this is an open enforcement order, and I think, if I understand you correctly, then you're looking at maybe coming in at the next meeting and kind of presenting your plan for kind of stabilizing the
Yeah,
site.
I think the wetland scientist spoke with you. Yeah.
So they do have a surveyor under contract, but there's been some delays. So they're hoped to be in front of us with a plan by May 10th, with the understanding that they may need to ask for a
Understood.
continuance to the May 24th.
Yeah, but bottom line is, I guess, until we get that plan, I'm not sure there's much more we can offer in terms of feedback. Just keep the dialogue open until, you can come before us again.
Yeah, we monitor the site, making sure there's no erosion. So.
All right, nothing further.
Yeah. Yeah, this was just the table date to come back, just to
Yep.
check progress, so, Commissioner Dillon? Commissioner McDonough? No. Okay, Commissioner Bedrin? Okay. All right, so let's, I'll entertain a motion to continue this, and they're saying they think they can come back May 11th?
They're going to try.
Okay, so let's put it on for May 11th.
Okay.
All right, with the understanding, though, if nothing, if they're not ready and they need a little bit more time,
I won't have them come. I'll tell them.
yeah, and
I'll
we'll
put
just
it on the
we'll
agenda.
put it on the agenda for the following May meeting, that's all.
Okay.
Because for me, I'm satisfied things are happening, and that was the big thing.
No, we do stuff. I mean, we don't want
Okay.
just
All right, so,
ignore
all right,
nobody.
so
yeah.
do I have a motion to put this on for the May 11th agenda?
I'll make a motion for the May 10th
Yes.
meeting.
May 10th, thank you.
I'll second it.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the
Aye.
ayes have it. All right, thank you for
Thank
coming in.
you. No problem.
Next item on tonight's agenda is a notice of intent, Jarvis Volkswagen concerning DEP file number 2060769. And the project location is 110 Industrial Avenue. A notice of intent has been filed by Jarvis Volkswagen for the construction of 2 building additions and a new parking area for vehicle inventory at 110 Industrial Ave. A portion of the project is within the 100-foot buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland associated with the Meadow Brook.
Good evening, Mr.
If you could
Chair.
identify yourself for the record,
Sure,
please.
members of the commission, for the record, my name is Brian Melissi with Whitman and Bingham Associates. Here representing Jarvis Volkswagen. With me tonight is Peter Jarvis from Jarvis Volkswagen. If it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to pass out a handout, if that's okay. It will help me in my presentation. Thank you, Mr. Chair. What I have in front of you, I suppose as a quick recap, we were here a couple meetings ago where we presented our initial notice of intent, the initial hearing. We opened the hearing, went over the project. We left that meeting with a laundry list of items in concerns and some comments from the commission originally. And what we've done since then, we've done a couple of things out on the site. What I have in front of you, the first 11 by 17, is a plan where I tried to, and I quote unquote, remove some of the lines. I know the plans, the design plans are very, very busy with a lot of the riverfront areas, the buffer zone areas, the topography, the easements that are out there. What I tried to do here on a plan is to kind of dumb it down a little bit, kind of color code it, and it would help in a bit of my presentation. Some of the items that I have looked into since we were here last is, per the City of Lowell Engineering Department, we did perform soil test pits in the 2 recharge areas. The results were favorable. We found it's a natural sandbank under there, fairly well-draining soils, nothing too out of the ordinary on estimated seasonal high water table, pretty commensurate with the level of the brook. And I'm jumping around with comments here from the commission originally, but one of the comments was any contamination while we were doing the test pits, and there were certainly no signs of contamination while we were out there. We've added the 50-foot buffer zone to all the plans, along with some of the other information. We had our botanist go back out and redelineate the mean annual high water mark on the brook and whatnot. Just to have him, there was a comment the last time about whether this delineation was done during drought conditions. So we had him go out there to look at it again, and he reminded us, or reminded me anyway, that with the mean annual high water mark, he is looking for staining. And so it's really not a drought type of issue. He did mark that. There's a letter, a quick letter report that I attached to that, in which he says he agrees with the delineation, and he saw some of the remnants of the old flags and whatnot. And hopefully that's taken care of. As far as the plans themselves go, I know that we haven't submitted anything formal. We've been going back and forth with the client, trying to figure out a way to try to put this parking area into that side of the property and kind of make it amenable to the commission. What we have done is we have taken the edge of pavement, and I should point out that we've actually staked everything out on the ground. So if the commission were to go out there today, we have staked out the original edge of pavement that was called for on the original plans, as well as the 50-foot no-build zone or buffer zone, so that you can kind of see it on the ground. But what we've done with the plans, what we've decided to do with the plans, is take the edge of pavement and dial it back a little bit to what I call the southerly rail from the existing rails that are out there. If you were to walk on the site, again, there's the abandoned railroad. It's got 2 sets of rails like most railroad tracks do. And what we're going to do is going to hold the southerly rail with the edge of the pavement. What that does is it reduces the amount of impervious surface on that side from 32,785 square feet to 23,820 square feet, or a reduction of about 27% of the impervious surface itself. It also reduces the amount of disturbance within the 50-foot zone from 10,030 square feet that was shown on the original plans to 1,950 square feet on the revised plan, which is a reduction of about 80% of the disturbance within the 50-foot zone. I had made a comment on at the original hearing that we believe that area is truly previously disturbed. I mean, it is a railroad bed. And we certainly stick to that contention. However, we're going to use that southerly rail as our limit of work. The smaller amount of pavement, reduces the amount of stormwater runoff, so we're able to revise our recharge areas by a little bit. And increases the distance between the limit of our work and the existing tree line. It really avoids any tree removal now whatsoever along the brook. We don't have to take down any trees. A couple of the other comments that were made during the initial hearing had to do with the fencing, or the security fencing that we have up around it. What we're going to do is we're going to leave a gap on either end. If you picture the site, and I do have a board here that I can put up if it helps. We were fencing 3 sides of the parking lot, leaving, of course, the brook side open. And what we would do is we would take the end of those fences and dial it right back to the 50-foot no-touch zone, which would leave a gap or a wildlife corridor for anything that was going to run through there. I think there was a talk that night about a moose. I have never seen a moose running wild, but I think the gap we leave would be big enough for a moose to get by. I know you haven't seen anything in particular to these plans. We've been going back the last couple of weeks, going back and forth, dialing this up, seeing what they could live with, keeping in mind the concerns of the commission and the 50-foot buffer zone and whatnot. And what we're here tonight was to present those ideas and maybe get some more feedback from the commission. Thank you.
So I note that your material that you indicated that the test pit showed no contamination, but how about the groundwater level? Do you have enough, is there enough head specifically? I think it's the 2 feet that you need over the floor of your, what are those, the
Caltech chambers.
Yeah, the Caltech.
We do have the 2-foot minimum distance required there. Again, what we'll do is we'll package everything up, write everything down, but the groundwater elevations were commensurate with our design, and there's going to be no issue there.
All right, so on the southerly property now, which is the main property.
Correct.
Your southeasterly proposed new structure. So that's the long skinny building.
Correct.
Shouldn't say skinny, but that's the long building. So it's half on existing gravel.
Correct.
Is that going to be paved? What's going to happen there?
There's going to be an apron around the building. Most of that addition on that part of the building is for service. So there would be a concrete apron that the vehicles would be able to drive up into. And we will take roof runoff and again recharge that, any of the new roof runoff, and recharge that back into the soil.
So those are going to be service bays?
They are.
Okay, so my guess then is they'll probably enter one side, exit the other side. I mean, is that typically how this will be done here?
Opposite, in and out the same door.
Okay, in and out the same door. So the southeasterly face of the building that faces the Lowell connector, will there be bays on that side? Okay, so that's the side that has a lot of gravel. And that's not in the buffer zone, but that's also, I would imagine at some point in time, with all heavy vehicle traffic, especially in the spring, early winter, it's going to get chewed up. So I would imagine you would want to pave that there, just for, certainly you don't want people's cars coming into that situation getting stuck, that type of thing. So that's not an over concern, but I would be concerned with potential runoff back into the River Meadow Brook, coming from that area. So, so you may want to address that either with contours or, a berm or something like that, or, grassy swale or something like that. It wouldn't have to be significant, but
Some type of stormwater management.
yeah, just something that's going to contain that side.
Right.
All right. I mean, do you park vehicles over in that far corner?
Which corner would that be?
This corner here. There it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do park
Okay.
inside.
All right. So, and again, I mean, that's, you may want to address that in the filing. That's not,
I will.
that's not it may be beneficial to put a harder top than gravel there, but again, I'm certainly not compelling that. All right, what I'll do right now is I'm going to open this up. Commissioner Varnum?
I'm pleased to see the 50-foot line on here and the fact that you've reduced most of the project outside of that line. One thing that I had on my list here from last time was snow storage for that new parking lot. Do you have any idea how that's going to be plowed or where the snow is going to be going?
Yep, up in the, say, the northeast corner, where we are able to bump out the pavement a little bit up in that area, there would be a small area there for snow storage. It would certainly take away some of the parking, but most of it is going to have to be a snow removal operation, because even with the reduced amount of pavement here, we're kind of squeezed in, and it's more than likely, any snowstorm of any particular consequence, it's going to have to be a snow removal operation.
And one of my other concerns was also the tree removal, and you seem to have addressed that there won't really be any tree removal
We try to do
along
that.
the bank. I know you couldn't put everything on this, but has the erosion control line moved from the other plan to this one?
It will go closer to the limit of work, absolutely, to better reflect, the limit of work.
And that still will not be in the way, any trees in the way of it?
It will not.
Okay. I'd like to get out there and take a look at yours. You said it's staked. What is it, the edges of the parking lot that you staked?
Again, I'd just like to point out, we staked the original proposal. So when you do see some of those edge of pavement stakes, and they're labeled edge of pavement, they're a little bit more, and maybe if we get a chance, we'll go out and, actually, we don't even have to, because you'll see the rail. The southerly rail is now going to be the new edge of pavement. And what we also did is we staked out the 50-foot buffer zone along the path, just, again, for a visual that you can see what it was.
Good. Okay, I think that was my concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back out, because last time I was there, it was about 37 degrees and blowing about 50 miles an hour, and I had a light jacket on, so it wasn't the greatest of days to be out there. Commissioner Lovely?
Thank you for the revised plan, because I think it does address a lot of the things we brought up at the last meeting. It's still a busy plan. I know that it's about as good as you can get, but where exactly, where would be the wildlife corridor gap that you were talking about? If I was looking.
And again, on the small scale, if I may approach, it might be a little easier, but.
Or maybe even a note or something, And if I recall, I think one of the reasons that you had some encroachment into the 50-foot no disturb zone for the parking lot was because of the need for, turning radiuses and the fixed placement of that concrete wall, if I recall, and you had to offset. Was that correct?
So when I put the proposal together for the first time in the initial filing, we kind of designed the quote-unquote parking lot according to City of Lowell zoning.
Right.
X amount of feet for a depth of a parking spot, X amount of feet for a maneuvering aisle. I suppose rather than calling this a parking lot now, it's really going to be a paved surface. It's not going to really meet any type of zoning except for in a couple of areas, so there probably wouldn't be a whole lot of striping.
Right.
But again.
Well, the purpose is interim storage for cars.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
It's not a traditional parking lot.
Right. So the general public isn't going to be over there moving cars. It's going to be the professionals that Jarvis hires.
Right.
And there may be some backing up and some maneuvering that wouldn't typically take place in a parking lot. But again, we heard the commission's concerns kind of loud and clear a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And what we're really trying to do is maximize what we can do on the site.
Right,
So-
and from your notes here, I can see obviously there's a significant reduction in, impervious surface and trying to optimize, optimize what you want to do without getting into the 50-foot no disturb zone. And I just note, again, what was brought up earlier, I appreciate the changed placement of the proposed building structures, because I think that's a significant change. And just out of curiosity, I think when we spoke last, there was just questions and concerns about the existing integrity of that bridge over the
Yep, so I was hoping to have a letter from a structural engineer for you tonight. We have one taking a look at it, vacations or whatever it may be. Everybody's busy. I don't have that letter. But we will have something for the file
Yeah.
that says that that bridge is structurally sound.
So the plan is still to kind of move cars from, south of the brook to the north of the brook, and that new parking lot over the bridge versus going on Industrial Ave?
It is.
With,
It is.
okay. I think that's it for now, so thank you. No further questions.
Commissioner Beardron? Commissioner McDonough? Commissioner Dillon?
No comments.
All right. Back to you.
Okay, why were we concerned, I wasn't here last week, sorry. Why were we concerned with the soil being contaminated?
Somebody had brought up a comment about the fact that it is a former railroad bed and that sometimes there is contamination on a railroad bed, so I put it in my notes. And again, the comment, I believe it was Commissioner Lovely, had said, if any contamination is encountered during the test pits, that we would certainly do the right thing and notify anybody. So that's why I brought that up, just to.
All right, and how many borings did you do?
We did two. We did one in each recharge area. I'm a certified soil science evaluator. Once we go out and do that, typically what we do is we do one in each area. If there's a change, we try to find where the change is or try to isolate that. If they're identical, again, because we're in a pretty sensitive area rather than ripping the area apart. So they were fairly identical. There's a sand bank under there. Soil maps showed A soils, but they also showed urban land. So they weren't able to identify it with a lot of the development in that area. So we really were out there not only looking for water table, but we were out there just to try to confirm the soil maps, which we were able to do.
Okay, so if I get this straight, you want to add additions to both buildings, and then on the other side of the brook, you're adding parking over there?
Correct.
And that parking will be for, I come in for service, drop my car off.
Nope. That area is only going to be for new vehicle storage. Right, that's to take some of the new inventory and put it over there. If you were to come in to buy a vehicle and you said, geez, I like that red one, you wouldn't be allowed to go pick up the red one and drive it back onto the, say, the southerly or the easterly side of the lot. Again, absolutely not. No.
Yeah, only if it's a blue car you could do that, but, yeah.
Okay, and then two buildings that you are building, assuming that are just gonna be on poured concrete slabs?
Correct. Correct.
All right, I am going to reopen this. Oh, we have a question, I'm sorry? No? Okay, so reopen this. Is there anyone who would like to offer their comments or concerns, either for or against this project?
Emily Teller. I live in Westford. I'm the Westford board member for the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. And I just would like to re-emphasize that we hope that the continuation of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail will be designed into this project with Jarvis. I was at the Boston MPO meeting last week where they have put on the 2020 tip the phase 3 that goes in Sudbury, and Mass DOT came up with $350,000 to fund the 75% design for the bridge that's going over Route 2 in Concord and Acton, and 2C is being constructed starting this spring. So there's a lot of activity that is happening south of Westford. Also 2A will have hopefully a ribbon cutting next spring. So as you know, the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail is the longest rail trail in eastern Massachusetts. It will be longer than the one that goes in Bedford to Cambridge, the Minuteman Bikeway. And so there obviously will be a lot of people using it from Framingham eventually to Lowell. And we really hope that the section that goes from under the connector, the Route 3 bridge by Cross Point, will be opened so people can get into Lowell in conjunction with the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. So anything that the Conservation Commission can do to encourage Jarvis to include the rail trail and to minimize their impact in that area so that the rail trail can go along the brook and also not be in two walls would be great. I would like to suggest, as Brian mentioned, perhaps less length of parking lot spaces per vehicle, and also a smaller turning radius. I know that may result in the need for a zoning bylaw request by Jarvis, but obviously the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail would support that. Anything you can do to help this happen, we would be grateful. And there will be tens of thousands of people who will also be grateful for your help. Thank you.
Don't run away yet.
I won't run away.
Have you, I mean, have you folks sat down and talked? I mean,
There has some discussion.
would that be helpful, or?
Well, last time we were here, Brian said he would work on some design alterations that would help the rail trail.
Right.
So I don't think we are
We're not
adversaries
by any
at this
stretch of
point,
the
no,
imagination.
at all.
And I would like to point out, especially for the commission members that weren't around the last time, the Jarvis family has been to city council to get a zoning change for the parcel on the westerly side in order to put the parking in. They've also committed to almost a quarter mile of easement along the rail trail, along the rail bed, from a portion of their property all the way to just about the target property, or where River Meadow Brook kind of winds back in around over there. The major part of that goes underneath the Lowell connector, which again is a very major component. Otherwise, you'd have to go up and around. They've also committed $10,000 for the design, or the whatever they want to use the $10,000 for, to help the rail trail people get their design going. We've looked at it umpteen ways. Rather than having to put a curb cut out onto Industrial Ave and keep cars coming in and around, we really want to use that bridge. And unfortunately, if the rail trail were to go there, every time a car was moved, they would have to cross over that portion of the rail trail. So, and I don't want it to come as a surprise to the commission, the plans that will come in will not show the rail trail along that portion, but will certainly still have the easement on the upper portion of that property that they obtained from the railroad.
So is there any way to facilitate, this last couple of 100 yards here, that, of getting some sort of continuous passage?
Yep, so at the city council hearing, the city themselves, the city manager took it upon himself to kind of carry the ball with the AvCarb people, which are the people directly, the abutter directly to the west. There's an existing electrical easement there, and it would be a short stretch to connect Industrial Ave through that property to the easement that the Jarvises have set up. And so what we would be interested to do is to see the city, if they've gone and talked to these guys or have garnered some of that easement. And so that would provide a connection from Industrial Ave, again, all the way to the property that the Jarvis owns and controls, which is down near the Target, the end of the Target.
I mean, because we know, like the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail and the Minuteman Rail Trail and any of these, the Greenway and whatnot, they're heavily reliant upon, obviously, the commercial property owners that abut these to, allow passage across their properties, and certainly that's being beyond a good neighbor in some cases. So I'm just, it would just be, to me, that, seeing how these projects work and how difficult it is to get funding, and, they take decades. And we're, Ms. Calvin is here tonight. I mean, we're dealing with another, she's already spoken once tonight, and dealing with another part of the Concord River Greenway that's, I've been here for 19, 20 years, and pretty much the first couple of years of my term on the commission, we're still talking, and we're still putting pieces of it together. So we know how long these things take, and obviously, Mr. Jarvis, very much appreciate, you doing this, but it just, if we get to that point where, the old adage is they start a bridge on one side of the river and start on the other side, and, it
don't quite
doesn't,
meet.
no one's going anywhere, right? So, so that's the type of thing. It would be nice to have, some sort of thing. And I know, was it Avco or Avcab that's right behind you
Avcarb.
guys? Avcarb, so, it's obviously, something that would be great to, have everyone sit down and, I know everyone is for it. I can't imagine anyone is against the rail trails because it's just a terrific use of the resource, so.
We use it ourselves. And I'm not by any means saying that the communication is going to stop tonight when we leave. That's certainly not the case. But again, we've looked at it, and we really need to use that bridge. And if we can figure out a way that we're not going to cross over the rail trail every time a vehicle is moved, that becomes the crux at this point right now.
Right, and that's perfectly understandable, so,
Can I also
yes,
point out
absolutely.
that along the current rail trail, many times it crosses streets, and so cars cross the rail trail all the time. And some of those are signaled with safe crossing equipment. Some of those have stoplights. Some of those might have other barriers. I mean, this is kind of a radical idea, but maybe Jarvis could put down like railroad gates so that, or something, so that people felt secure and weren't really able to necessarily cross into the area that he's concerned about. But that cars crossing the rail trail is not an issue. And I guess I would also like to see the rail trail right-of-way in the drawings, just so that we can all be on the same page about talking of reality instead of theory.
I mean, I don't want to speak for Mr. Jarvis, but I think their main concern is not so much the passage, it's security. So,
Well, then maybe there could be locked gates. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
you're the one that has to cross that right-of-way. So, and even though you own it, which I understand all the way to Target now, there was at one point some interest of the city having that parcel. So this wouldn't necessarily be a discussion we're having. But I also am not super familiar with that exact site. So can I also lean on Jane Calvin again
Absolutely.
to give some remarks
Yeah.
about this? So thank you.
Yeah, that was gonna be my comment, is if we could put their easement on here, because like right now, it's like, where's it going? Like, are you trying to squeeze it in between the riverfront
So
and
you-
the 50-foot buffer?
It is shown on the larger plans.
Yeah, I'm looking at those too, and I can't find
It's,
it.
it's not on the piece where the parking lot is. It actually, and I could point it out to you, but where the property kind of takes a jog, that's where we pick up the easement. That's where it was talked about.
It's on on where the new parking lot's being proposed?
Correct.
Okay.
And then there's a junction that's going to hopefully go over the Avcarb parcel.
Yeah, can you come show me? Let me see.
That's the actual, and it's hard to turn my back on everybody. Okay, so there it is right here. There's a line, and you can't read it here, but that says approximate location of future rail trail easement. The idea here is it comes up, it's over right here, and then hopefully it comes over the Avcon. So, I apologize.
here,
And then it would stay here.
and then cross here.
Correct. And so on the larger plans, again, we show the easement here.
Okay,
We label it future, approximate location of future to memorialize it on those plans.
yeah.
It's exactly what was suggested. What I could do, and again, because the plans were so busy, I can bring in a plan that shows further where we go to the property that Jarvis actually bought, and this easement goes all the way through there.
So, and then here you have a proposed fence, right?
Correct.
So we wouldn't even have to worry about safety
Correct.
of Jarvis, because it's all on the other side. And then when it gets on this side, it's off your property.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so this is the piece they're trying to negotiate with Avcon for an easement.
It's right here.
Correct.
Okay,
And it's really, again, it's an existing Mass Electric easement there.
yeah.
The easement's basically already in place. So that's, again, the city had said, and I don't, they'll probably throw something at me, but they said they would kind of carry that ball and try to get a hold of the Avcon.
Okay. So you did your part, for the most part? Yep. Okay, thank you.
So, again, it's Jane Calvin with the Lowell Parks and Conservation Trust. For those of us in the audience that didn't have privy to your conversation, I think the best way to say it is that the easement comes into the top right-hand corner of this map that's been passed out, and it stops. That's where it is on the map now. I'd like to, the AvCarb, the repeated referral to AvCarb as the partner that's going to make this happen is not accurate. But I have to say that I do like what I see on this plan. I really like that the pavement has been moved away from the brook, and I'm seeing an opportunity for the trail to go between the brook and the cars. I completely understand the security issue and liability issue, and if this was a city property and there was a city easement, that would be covered under the state statutes for recreational access. And I would think that this would actually be a safer crossing than all the street crossings that the 25-mile Bruce Freeman already has. So I think that liability-wise and safety-wise, I like the idea of the railroad gates going up. I think that's a unique idea. Some of the pros for having the trail go between the cars and the brook is that it's a much more aesthetically pleasing experience. That's where a trail should go. Otherwise, the trail will be hemmed in between a fence on the AvCarb property and a fence on the back side of the cars. And it's not a safe experience, and it will not be used. Well, I was sitting here thinking, you ought to open up like a little pathway in there for you're gonna have like all these car dealerships have really awesome coffee shops now.
Yeah.
I'm totally serious. It'll be a great place for a coffee shop stop. So I completely understand the need for the security of the cars and making sure, and I'm okay if there's a fence behind all the cars, between the cars and the trail. And I like the idea that we're starting to think about turning radius reduction and car length, parking spot reduction. I think that's all moving in the right direction. I do have a question about the wall, because the wall in the last meeting, there was a pretty firm request that there's consideration for taking that wall down, so I don't know where that is now. But I think also, as far as the wildlife concern, we'd be actually, reducing some of that fencing and then, so I was thinking about how this is laid out now, and I think for the trail to possibly go through there, turning some of the corners a little bit might be nice, so that it's a nicer experience going under. We need to make some room so that there aren't cars bumped right up against the connector and so close to the brook, and so that there's actually room for passage either way through there. On the back side, there's a pinch point, and on the front side, there's a pinch point where you need to be able to get access under the actual connector and have it be an experience that's not fenced in, literally fenced in. So again, I like the way this is heading. I do feel that moving forward, just knowing how the planning board works, they're going to want to see this trail on the map somewhere. And I think that they've seen this mapped out, and it's in 3 different master plans that they're going to want to see that this has been worked out a little bit. So I'm happy to sit down with Emily Moore and you folks to see if there's any way we can make this work. But again, I'll reiterate that I really think that the trail needs to go between the cars and the brook, and we're making good progress towards that. And I'd like to see if we can work a little bit further on that.
Jane, is there any, if they were to grant that, because obviously the other option's easier for them just on the outside. If they were to work with the city, is there any security measures that the city can offer through this portion? Because I mean, if you have, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of cars in there, and people are constantly driving by bikes and then vandalizing or anything like, is there any measures that the city has?
I can't speak for the city.
Okay.
I'm with a private nonprofit, but we work closely enough with the city, and I've seen them enough in action that I think that they'd certainly be willing to be part of this conversation, and they could reiterate the points about the liability and the safety and having it be like a street crossing, because I can't imagine that there are cars moving faster or moving through there at more frequent rate than, I would bet you it's a much reduced rate compared to what is already seen at so many of the road crossings in Chelmsford.
Chelmsford, yeah, the Chelmsford main drag, you gotta cross through there, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
those
just
are some
more-
crazy intersections you go across there.
Yeah, no, just putting myself in the shoes of, Mr. Jarvis, I don't know if I'd want people checking out my cars, my brand new car, like, if there'd be some sort of security, something.
Well, I would
for that.
imagine that he would want it to be fenced.
Yeah, or shaded, but,
Yeah, maybe that too,
yeah.
so.
Well, see, I'm thinking, a good marketing ploy is a couple of the Volkswagens with bike racks on top of them,
Yes.
right?
For that,
So,
yeah.
I know, I really would like to see this be more of a, more, as Emily said, not adversarial, but let's make this work for the cars and the trail at the same time. And it thinks, between the cars, the railway, it's, it's kind of we gotta make it a win-win.
So, and again, the same thing, that Jane, that I had mentioned with, Ms. Teller, that, and I'm sorry, Ms. Teller, I don't know you, so I will use your proper name, so, but I've known Jane for a long, long time. So I would say, we gotta sit down, everyone in the same room and.
Does that include you?
Huh?
Does that include you?
Yeah,
or-
I would be
okay.
more than willing to, sure.
Okay.
But hopefully, hopefully something could be worked out here, because I think it's obviously, it's a terrific use of a resource that's been underutilized for a long time. The River Meadow Brook has been abused, and it's nice to see it come back.
Right, and I think I don't want to move towards the planning board process and have it be adversarial. I'd rather go into that process because they have more leverage even than you do in terms of the trail. So I'd rather go into that process and all the people that are here tonight in support of the trail and have it be more cooperative. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So where do we stand now, Mr. Malicio, as far as, going forward with the planning board? Because I will tell you, typically the Concom, and it's part of the Wetlands Protection Act too, we're like one of the last boards you go to, not one of the first ones, so.
Well, I think we know there's really nothing typical about this project. When we were first drawing it up, we certainly were going to go concurrently with the planning board. That's the way we were going. When we had the first meeting here, we decided to pump the brakes a little bit on the planning board process to make sure that the commission was somewhat comfortable with what we were proposing. So with that being said, as we make some of these revisions, hopefully final revisions, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we will be going forward with the planning board process. And I do know the planning board typically likes to have a pre-submittal meeting, in which case we would kind of lay things out, our experience here, what the plan started from, what it currently is at. We would certainly like to close some of the hearings and get some fruits of our labor, so to speak. But we certainly know that if there's any changes come along the line from the planning board process, that we're either back in front of you or get you those changes. But to answer your question, Mr. Chair, we're going to be ramping up that process very shortly.
So,
Again, with some positive feedback tonight, which,
right, so, that entire north section of the canal, the brook, is jurisdictional.
correct.
So, assuming that there's some meeting of the minds as far as placing a rail trail somewhere there, whether it's on the north side or the south side, whether, is going to require coming back to us.
Correct.
So I would like to get some sort of sense of, is it going to be on the Avcarb side? Is it going to be on the Brook side? Where is it going to be? And because it's a significant enough modification that it would reopen the public hearing process as far as the, as far as the Concom goes. So I look at it as a 6 of one, half a dozen of another type option here, where if we were to permit this now, you'd have to come back and reopen the public hearing regarding if the planning board says, hey, show a rail trail in here somewhere. Whether it's on the north side or the south side, you're gonna have to come back, and it's gonna reopen it. It's not a minor modification. It's a significant change, based on what's already been presented. I guess what I'm driving at is I kinda like to know.
Sure.
I kind of like to know, what the planning board process, where are they leaning? What are they going to be doing prior to us closing this out?
Sure.
So,
And we can certainly try to facilitate that. Off the top of my head, while we're talking about that, is the question of who's actually going to construct the rail trail. And when does it get constructed? I mean, this is something I know the Jarvises are looking to do, in the very, very near future, so they can get their Volkswagen dealership up and running.
right.
If this is something that is 6, 7, 8 years down the road, we would certainly like to have our order of conditions done, completed, closed
Right, oh, no,
out.
obviously.
Yep, and then a whole nother order of conditions or a whole nother filing for the actual construction of it. So again, just off the top of my head, thinking about along those lines. We have memorialized an easement on the plans. We will talk to the planning board about it when we get to that point. We'll certainly keep the dialogue open. We'll go back and beat our heads against the desk a few more times to see if there's any way we can do that. Coming here tonight is we tried everything, and the security reasons, we would like to see and I know everybody keeps saying that AvCarb's a non-go or a non-starter. We were under the impression that it certainly was a starter when we were at the city council hearings. We would like to see that kind of played out a little bit, just to see what happens. So that's another thing that we will try to track down with the city manager's office to try to find out where that is going, if anywhere. So I guess in a nutshell, we're certainly willing to work with everybody. I understand your concerns about showing it. We will try our best to get that information as we move along.
All right, so, and I believe we have a request for more information tonight, but,
I would certainly request a continuance. I don't have the full-blown plans to give you. I wanted to go over some of these changes before we kind of get into that. I appreciate your patience, we really do. But we didn't expect it to be closed tonight.
yeah.
So.
Well, it's, normally we wouldn't on a submittal that just came before us tonight, too, so.
And I appreciate that, absolutely.
Especially since, if it was a minor modification, but this is a fairly, substantial change, so. I like the direction it's going. So, yeah, I'm still not done calling it out, so, I like the direction it's going, so, I like that you've pulled it back, so, it seems to me that you've done at least, everything you've done everything you could do to minimize the resource impacts, so, at least as far as that goes, I do like that, so, based on it, yeah, I'm still not done, so. So it's, what I will do is I'll, if there's anyone else who would like to offer their comments or concerns.
Do you want me to wait?
No, you're fine.
To speak to how long it would take to build the rail trail there, it's not on a tip through 2020 that I know of yet. The feds and the states will build it. The state would put it out for construction bid, and there would have to be 2 design processes, the 25% and the 75%. Does Lowell have community preservation funds?
Jane would probably be able to
Okay.
answer
All
that
right.
better
Well,
than I
if-
could.
Just to correct you, this probably could be done through Gateway City funds.
Oh, well, that's even better. But the right-of-way has to be protected. I mean, mostly of the time when a rail trail is built, it's built on a right-of-way. And in Westford, sometimes the right-of-way extends 60 feet from the center line. So the rail trail ADA standards now are 10-foot asphalt, ADA, this is for ADA, and then a 1 or 2 foot gravel shoulder. So I guess what everybody's now working with would be 14 feet of final trail. And so that is the minimum that probably should be shown on a plan, and the possibility of planning and conservation to determine where that 14 feet can go, given all the restrictions of the brook and the parking, is part of this puzzle.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Matthew Donahue, 11 East U Street. God bless you, Chris. 19 years
I
on
know,
the
huh?
Conservation Commission. Louise is like 40 years. So
You sat here at one time,
Yeah, that's
Attorney
right.
Donahue, so.
I got out. I had a couple of questions on the plan. And the existing bridge, it's my understanding that's going to be somehow certified and tested. But is that going to be used?
Yes, from what I understand, that's going to be there. There is no street access to the proposed lot. It's going to be solely over that existing rail bridge.
All right, so I guess the question was, I don't know if it's represented on the plan, what the surface will be on the northern side of the brook leading up to the parking area. Will that be paved?
It'll be on the final plans. What we're looking is probably a pervious paver, something to that, to that effect.
All right, so that pervious paver of some sort?
Correct.
Okay. And then the fencing, the secured fencing runs along this line here,
If I may miss it, yeah.
southern?
Nope. It actually encompasses 3 sides, but not the brook side.
So this is open.
It is.
And is it envisioned that there'll just be one single route to the parking and then you move it, or are you going to run all along?
Nope, it'll just be a pathway right to the paved area.
Okay.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong, you're going to park along the northern side, and the routeway, the driveway is going to be along the southern side, the brook side?
Correct.
Yeah.
It'd just be like a driveway, so so it's not gravel getting beat up all the time, just to get onto the paved surface. Yeah. And again, from the original plans, the paved surface itself will be curbed, will be bermed to collect stormwater so that no stormwater runs into the resource areas. Directed to catch basins to the recharge area, so that way, we're able to meet the standards of the stormwater protection guidelines.
Okay. So I guess everyone's addressed the easement issue. It seems to me it's a wonderful opportunity the Jarvises have to have so many people wanting to help them do this because there's more pavement, traffic, road work that it's hard for me to believe that we couldn't fit a bike path somewhere in this very small area. And I think Jane's recommendation or suggestion that it comes closer to the brook, buffered probably, you could enhance the bank, and would be something that should be pursued. And like so many of these things, it's never one kind of leadership person, right? The city can do things, the Jarvis can do things, the planning board can do things, the Conservation Commission can do things, but we're all siloed, so it's difficult. So I would encourage the Jarvises to talk to the neighbors as well to the north, to bring them, engage them in the discussion, because it's a good, solid business in the area. It's consistent with everything else going on in that area, but there's also bikers and people that can go through that area fairly simply. So if you're going to open up either end for moose, then a few bikers, maybe 3 or 4 months a year, shouldn't really be an issue. So I look forward to further proposals, and thank you for your help in this.
Thank you, Attorney Donahue. Yes, sir.
I'm Dick Williamson. I'm the Sudbury representative on the board of directors of the Friends of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail.
Welcome to Lowell.
And you may ask, why did I get in my car on a rainy night and drive all the way to Lowell? Well, I want to give you a longer, more global perspective. I started trying to get the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail built in 1988, so I'm going on 30 years. These things take some time. But at this point, I'm encouraged because the southern end is approaching final design. That's in Sudbury. And the northern end is what you're talking about tonight. And the ability to extend the trail over that longer distance is really, really great. And I really encourage, I can't talk to any of the details, you know the details better than I, but I encourage everybody here to work it out, because this is a key linkage on the north end of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. Now, we are really hoping that we will connect with the Concord River Greenway in Lowell, and that would give you a whole network of trails that you could access with a bicycle or on foot. Now, talking about on foot, there's an even more global perspective. Not just the 25 to 30 mile Bruce Freeman Rail Trail, it's the 200-mile Base Circuit Trail. And the Base Circuit Trail starts in Newburyport and loops all the way through Lowell. Hopefully it can connect through Lowell if we can work some of these things out. Down along the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail and eventually through Sudbury and Ashland and so on. And this is a key linkage for this Base Circuit Trail. And I have walked about 50 miles of that trail, and I would love to be able to walk right through Lowell and head to Newburyport, and I hope you all can make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Yes, ma'am.
Lisa Arnold, Prescott Street, downtown Lowell. I'm here partially representing the 350 members of the Lowell Bike Coalition. We are definitely interested in seeing the extension. We would definitely like to help out in any way we can. I think that you'll see, if you look at the economic benefits to any city that has a rail trail, going through it or having it as an endpoint has been really good for the towns. Lexington is a really good example, Bedford as well. The Bruce Freeman Rail Trail right now on this end stops at an empty parking lot. And I think if we can get it into downtown Lowell, if we can extend it that far, it will be really good for all of the businesses in downtown Lowell. I think it'll be really good for the businesses along the trail. We were taking a look at the map. The security issue, bicyclists are your least concern when it comes to security. If you look along the rail trail, a lot of the rail trails, what they have there now, I think that you'll see that the cyclists are very respectful of property, and people who have rail trails on or near their property actually have their property values go up. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I think with you, we're going to set a personal record here for the Concom for having people speak at a public hearing. So,
well, there's a lot of passion in the room. My name is Gardner Gray. I live in Billerica, and I represent about 1,800 members of the Charles River Wheelmen. And we're talking about the Bruce River, the Bruce Freeman Trail. But I wanted to present to you, kind of in a picture, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
The scope of the efforts that we're talking about. This is the Big State Trail. And I'm sorry I didn't make copies for everyone. I haven't done this too often. But that is the Bruce Freeman Trail, and all of the red is completed. In other words, of the 260 miles or thereabouts, it's done, or it's in process. And in looking at the trail, it goes from almost the Cape up to Newburyport, all the way around. And we've got this one little section in Lowell and a couple others where it doesn't connect. So in looking at the entire scope of the trail, you can see, and then this is the zoom in the Lowell section, and I've highlighted in yellow the one section that would stop literally thousands of people from coming into Lowell And the bike club that I am a member of would be coming to Lowell, but right now we don't because we can't get here. So that's the scope. Thank you.
All right, so I just want to make a comment. I don't think it's any secret to anyone in the room that I personally am an avid cyclist, and I have been for decades and decades. Much to probably the chagrin of many people in this room, I do not ride on bike trails. I ride on the road. And the reason why I do not ride on bike trails is because in the summertime, they are crowded. And I mean, you know, there's a lot of people using them. And I have to concur with your characterization. It would bring in thousands of people during the summer months, coming through, stopping in, buying, you know, coffee, lattes, water, lunches, you know, yeah, Volkswagens, you know. So you know, I mean, hey, Subarus and Volkswagens, right? That's what bike people drive, so, and Jeeps. But, you know, it's, to me, thank you for saying that, because it really is it really is true. You know, it's you just sit along any other section of the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail or the Minuteman Trail, and just to see the sheer volume of people that are walking, skating, riding their bikes, it's really cool. And you know, there's people that haven't been on bikes in years, and there's people that probably, you know, are going way too fast for the trails given the traffic that's on them. But it's really a great thing, and this is the type of thing that makes Lowell a centerpiece. You know, it's just one of those extra jewels in the crown that make this city great and make this city what this city really is and what it represents. And it's just a great cross-section of culture. It's a great cross-section of people. It brings people together in ways that perhaps they never would have envisioned. So to see this come through and to complete through the city, you know, I'm wholeheartedly in support of it. But in the same token, and I hate to say this, it's a difficult issue for this, you know, for this commission. It's, you know, I wish we did have jurisdiction specifically over doing this, but again, this is something that needs to be impassionedly advocated for, you know, in the planning board. And and Mr. Jarvis, I really hope, you know, that the people that have spoken tonight have, you know, maybe getting the wheels turning in your marketing mind, because you're a genius at that. So.
I understand what they're saying, because I was on a bike trail this weekend. So.
Okay, is there anyone else? Attorney Beard?
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
And how are you, by the way?
Fine.
Good.
I'm Maxa Barrett. I'm a retired attorney who's practiced in this community for over 35 years, but I'm an avid biker. And so I guess I first came here to plead with you to find a way, and I'll be happy as a certified mediator to sit down and offer my free services if that would in any way help you to come to see this. But the other thing I wanted to impress when we talk about the economics is that I travel all over this country on and taking trips on bike trails. And that brings in people and money to this community. And I just signed up for a trip to go to Missouri to the Katy Trail and to do it. And it's an old railroad, and we had businesses that we had to put together. And I want you to see the importance of it, not just from a little spite of the business, but to expand upon it, what it means to this community. And I really urge all of you to get together and work. Because if we lose this opportunity, it will never happen again. And I thank you for giving me this purpose.
Thank you, Attorney Baird. So perhaps one of those small service bays could change flat tires, you know, grease some chains, replace brake cables, you know, true some disc brakes or whatever. So, you know, I'm making light of this, but really I'm serious about what I said in my comments. And you know, I don't need to tell anyone in this room the progress Lowell has made over the last several decades, especially you, Mr. Jarvis. I mean, you've been part of it. So, you know, again, I would just hope, and I would love to see that this, and it's, again, this is something that you know, there's a lot of stakeholders in this room that have been a part of it. I know Attorney Donahue was at the very early stages of a lot of this, and his practice has been dedicated to this through the years. Attorney Barrett, I didn't know you were a cyclist, but cool. You know, Jane Calvin has been, you know, huge in the community as far as promoting Parks and Conservation Trust issues, but specifically the Concord River Greenway. It started with her, you know, for that, I've met some new people. You know, the Charles River Wheelmen, you know, I can attest to is an absolutely huge group. It's probably one of the biggest in the country, let alone in Massachusetts. They host a couple of annual rides, and not only that, you know, racing too. So you know, it goes beyond just recreational use. So, you know, and Ms. Teller, great to meet you, and thank you for, you know, what you've done through the years and decades. You know, there's a lot of dedicated people here. You know, what can we say? I mean, right now, I'd just like to continue this. Hopefully, you know, we have these joie de vivre feelings carry forward and go for it. So before I do that, I'm going to call it out one more time. Is there anyone here who would like to offer their comments or concerns, either for or against this project? And again, not speaking tonight or speaking tonight will not stop you from speaking at the next hearing date. So I've always had an open policy. I like to hear from people. So, and I encourage people to speak up. So don't be shy. All right, so hearing none, do I have a motion to continue at the request of the applicant?
I'll make a motion to continue this till, do you want 2 meetings?
Are we looking at May 11th, May 10th? Huh? Or would that be a better date for you? I'd like to pick a date because we do have a lot of people here.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the 24th would give us some time to maybe meet with the planning board and have that preliminary meeting. If, that way maybe we have a little bit more information for this commission.
So your preference would be the 24th?
I think so,
Okay.
if that's okay with the commission.
Yeah, that's fine. That's absolutely fine with us. So do I have a motion to continue to May 24th?
Motion to continue to May 24th.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, and
for your patience.
thank you everyone for your patience.
Thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and you know, I'm keeping my fingers crossed,
So
so.
that's, again, I think the extra time, we'll use it wisely.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm gonna take these, the National Grid courtesy notifications, just do those, because then I'm gonna leave before the Todman one, so, okay. But I'm abstaining from all of those, so. I feel bad, we had an officer here all night, and it's. let's continue. That's fine, they're fine. All right, so we've got so I know National Grid has sent us a letter. They're going to be doing some trenching on Townsend?
Yes,
Okay, that's in place of the right-of-way?
yes.
Okay, and then the other one was the Lawrence Street Bridge that they're just continuing work on?
Correct, they're moving a utility pole, but it's part of the bridge project that the city already has a notice of intent
All
for.
right.
And then the third is just their scheduled vegetation maintenance along transmission right-of-ways.
Okay. Yeah. So, all right, so I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Varnum and make my way out, because there's one last thing that I'm abstaining from, so. Are they here? It doesn't seem like it, so. I'm not coming back, so.
So just the other notice we have on the agenda, I did sign an emergency certification form to breach a beaver dam with the condition that in 30 days they'll provide the information of who did the work, they can't dewater the pond. Fisheries and Wildlife did issue a 10-day permit. We have every property owner on I don't want to say Chris's. I issued an emergency certification permit to breach the beaver dam, to dewater the pond, and to trap beavers out there because the water was rising and affecting the radio tower. That we have a 10-day emergency permit from Fisheries and Wildlife. We also have all the property owners' written permission to access the site because the beaver dam is on DCR property. And I'm also updating you on, I believe it was April 20th, but I'm not sure of the date right now. We did have the city hosted a meeting with all the stakeholders related to that site, and we are positive that there is a productive plan moving forward, and is why we felt comfortable issuing the certification, emergency certification. So I'm just looking for you folks to ratify it. The conditions were they are not allowed to dewater the pond, they're not allowed to breach the dam entirely, and they are supposed to provide a written report within 30 days of who did the work and what exactly they did.
So my recollection, we had a lengthy discussion about this about a year ago, and then the idea was that the city would work with deep, or fisheries and wildlife on a path forward. And we haven't heard anything until, from my recollection, until tonight. And is that because, we ran into the summer months, the issue kind of went away, and now we're in spring again, and now?
Correct.
Okay.
No, didn't we, this got brought up a few meetings ago?
Correct.
Yeah, so this isn't the first time we're hearing it.
What's that?
So we did come up one other time, I apologize. There was another emergency certification that we issued.
Okay.
And then this is, so scheduling DCR, Duville, the owners of the tower, Fisheries and Wildlife, did take some logistical challenges.
Understood.
So the meeting did happen, and we do think that there will be a long-term implementation plan so that they won't have to keep coming back for emergency permits.
So where it was somewhat a contentious issue when we talked about it a year ago, gathering all the stakeholders together and having a meeting, as you mentioned, you got a path forward, and all you need for us to do as a Conservation Commission is to ratify that plan going forward?
I would like you to...
Emergency order. Right.
Because the enforcement order is still open, so I just want you to ratify the emergency certification for the existing, and I'll just keep you posted about the long-term plan.
All right.
When I know what that is.
My concern is about the timing of this. I know the original beaver trapping regulations have certain times of the year when trapping permits aren't given. I understand this is an emergency order, but it's kind of inhumane, for instance, if there's still babies in the beaver house, to be trapping the adults, putting babies at risk. Have you looked into that, or did Fish and Wildlife say anything about that?
I have not looked into it. Fisheries and Wildlife didn't make any mention of that, but I'm under the impression that who they're hiring to do the work is certified and...
They're aware of the windows of when you can perform the work
Correct.
and not perform
Yeah,
the work.
thank you.
Right.
But if it's an emergency order, that is what it says, is that they're allowed to immediately do trapping, I would think.
Correct, but also they do need to provide within 30 days exactly what they did and who did it and what his certifications are. So I know you'll know after the fact.
Could you go through those? I really couldn't hear you. The 3 conditions that you put on it?
And just to let you know, according to Google, mating season for beavers are from January to March. The mating season for beavers are January to March. In November,
We're good.
yeah, we're good. Well, that's the mating season, so I'm assuming they like humans, 9 months.
I don't think they have a long rearing period.
So the special conditions were within 30 days of completion of work necessary to abate the emergency, the applicant shall submit a report to the commission detailing the work. This approval does not include a complete removal of the dam. This emergency approval should not be interpreted as approval to completely or significantly dewater the pond. Sorry.
Okay, I'm just going to repeat this in case anybody else is as hard of hearing as I seem to be. Within 30 days of completion of work necessary to abate the emergency, the applicant shall submit a report to the commission detailing the work. So this would be after completion of it. And this approval does not include a complete removal of the dam. This emergency approval should not be interpreted as approval to completely or significantly dewater the pond. Okay. All right, I am still concerned about the time of year that this is occurring, especially since it was, I believe, a year at least ago that we were all out there and were highly outraged about the fact that somebody had tried to breach the dam and really had only taken a little chunk out of it. And now we don't really have any, we just have something that says doesn't include complete removal. Now, we've had removals of, partial removals of beaver dams come before us in the past, and we actually included a number of inches that it would be lowered, or some kind of a standard by which you could measure what had actually happened, not just take somebody's idea of what maybe this should look like. Or, you know, there's really no standard here. That
My understanding, though, is this is a licensed contractor who is familiar with and compliant with state law on this type of activity, and all that work would be done in accordance with those laws.
Yes.
Okay.
Christine, who's paying for all this? Sorry. Who's paying, is this
This time, I believe it's the property that's being affected.
which is the radio
the
station?
tower.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable too that we haven't heard anything about this meeting that occurred. We had wanted a meeting. That was one of our takes from the last time we dealt with this problem, was we wanted to see a meeting. Were you involved in that meeting, Christine?
I was not. My boss, Eric Slagle, organized and is the point person for the city for this site moving forward.
So did we get a report of what took place at that meeting?
I can ask for one in writing and submit it to you.
Now, does this, the fact that you signed this, does that mean that this work is essentially being undertaken as we speak?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we really don't, I'm very uncomfortable with this. This is something we should have had a representative come in here to explain the process. We should have been able to discuss it before it took place, and where the situation has been the same out there for at least a year, I really don't know why this is all of a sudden an emergency. You know, he complained a year ago that it was lapping at the base of his towers, and really none of the people involved really sided with his problem at that point, because we were all involved with the fact that somebody had tried to, without permission, take down the beaver dam. So I don't know what the pleasure of the commission is, but I wouldn't be ratifying this myself. Somebody want to make a motion about this?
So one question I have, remember before, a year ago, the sensitive discussion of, was it natural heritage or fish and wildlife? You know, there might be a lawsuit for the perpetrator. Those people, though, now are still involved, and they're willing to issue this. So I'm assuming if this was still a problem, they wouldn't be doing that, correct? Are all those parties, I forget which ones they were, that were upset a year ago, are they all involved in
There is an endangered turtle out in that pond, and so Fisheries and Wildlife was concerned about breaching of a beaver dam without a permit before.
Yeah.
And they are involved and aware and are part of this process. And once the city confirmed that they were on board, we were comfortable signing the emergency certification form. And technically, I believe, and I'm not totally sure on this process, the only reason why we sign an emergency order is because of the enforcement order. Otherwise, they just need to go get their 10-day permit from Fisheries and Wildlife and alert us. And so I did just sign the permit for the trail of the paperwork.
I guess if all those parties that were involved, that were upset a year ago, are still involved and they're for this, I would assume I would be for this as well. I don't want us to have left out a few people that were upset last time. I forget all the people that were involved, but I just remember there was talk of a lawsuit and whatnot. And I guess one of my other questions is, so we still have an open enforcement order. Why?
Just a cease and desist. Don't breach beaver dams. That's all it is. We never rescinded it.
But don't, at some point, what's the plan to rescind that enforcement order?
Was the long-term water management plan for the site.
Which they're supposedly coming up with. They just need this short-term enforcement order because the water's gonna pile above the towers.
Correct.
Again.
Correct.
And then, if we were to ratify this, can we also put conditions on that says, you need to come up with this plan by a certain date because it's been a year?
Yes, you can amend.
Does that make sense? Because I guess it's like, okay, we have an enforcement order that this is gonna be the second emergency cert we're issuing. That's a bigger problem. So how long is this gonna keep going on? Does that make sense?
It does. I just don't know how comfortable I feel allowing the commission to put a date on it without a representative here to speak on behalf of the property.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
But I would say on behalf of the city, we are encouraged that we're moving towards a solution.
Yeah.
And we have productive and positive participation And so we kind of want to keep,
So what Caitlin, just following up on what Caitlin was saying, right now, I mean, the what that needs to be done, or what they're asking to do, has conditions, get after the fact report within 30 days, not a complete breaching of the dam and no full dewatering of the pond water behind the dam. But we're not sure on a schedule for when the work is going to be performed. I mean, we have the emergency, is the intent that once the emergency order is ratified, that they will?
so they have 30 days from the date that I signed it. And then the Fisheries and Wildlife is only a 10-day permit. So if they don't do the work within 10 days,
So where are we within that clock right now, that 10-day
as
period?
far as I have not heard that the work is complete, but I do know that someone was out yesterday.
All right, so the work is initiated already?
Yes.
All right. And from what I recall, I guess I share Commissioner Varnum's comment that it would have been nice to kind of have something presented to us, but from what I recall at that meeting, which was very contentious, at the end of the day, our role was to try and be a convener, to try and bring the parties together. And to Commissioner Beardred's comment, I think that's taken place. The parties together, all interested parties have been together. They've had a discussion. Those discussions have been constructive, and they're moving forward with a plan. We have an interim kind of emergency order that we're looking, I mean, they're already doing the work, so this is just kind of almost codifying for the Conservation Commission what's already ongoing. And so I see no harm in that. But I would want to make sure that, obviously we get to do like a debrief, maybe discuss that report get a report out from that after the fact report so we have a better understanding of what was done if this type of thing was to come forward to us again.
And it's gonna keep coming. Right. So again, they're under an enforcement order to come up with a long-term plan. They've had a year to do it, let's say. There's no plan. So in the meantime, they wait till it builds up and we need an emergency enforcement. It's almost like they're taking a shortcut every time. So I think we need to enforce again that, hey, you gotta come up with this long-term plan, because if 6 months ago they would have came up with this long-term plan and we would have closed the enforcement order, I'm assuming this breaching would have been covered under it and you wouldn't be needing to do an emergency cert. That's the plan. That was the big goal. So it's like you have an enforcement order, you haven't done anything, and now you're doing shortcuts to still achieve what you want and covering it under emergency plans. That was not our purpose of the enforcement order.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, Caitlin, that all of a sudden there's an emergency, even though the situation's been the same for at least a year. And that's not the way to do business. They wanted us involved a year ago because they were interested in, defending this or that, or different organizations were at odds with one another. And now I feel that we've been cut out of this. I know Christine perhaps has known what's going on, but we issued an emergency order. We were an integral part of this whole problem. We went out there and marched around for several hours and talked to everybody and discussed the whole thing. And then all of a sudden we're hit with this, oh, it's an emergency. We've already taken care of it, but would you mind saying that we did the right thing, And I think our enforcement order is what we should be focusing on, as Caitlin says. And let's get somebody to come up with a plan. I know there's a problem. Certain people have a problem out there, but I've never seen, a plan for beavers that has so little detail.
All right, so where are we at? So the meeting was held with a bunch of shareholders. You've already signed it, so we probably can't take that back, correct? So we're moving forward with that, right? Okay, so that's where we're at. It is what it is. I think moving forward, don't we have some jurisdiction under an enforcement order to get the parties here? I mean, we can issue fines. We can. That's the whole point of the enforcement order. So I think we need to move forward. What's been done's been done. Let's move forward with that. But then I think we need to maybe do some digging on when the enforcement order was issued, get some dates and say, listen, it's been so many months, a year, whatever it's been, you know, we got to come up with this plan here. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay.
I think another way to put it is the enforcement order stands and will not be rescinded until the stakeholders come before us to describe what their long-term plan is, so we avoid this emergency order situation that is already being implemented. So we can either ratify it or not. The bottom line is the work's ongoing, and they're not going to be any penalty for them doing the work. So I mean,
Yeah.
you know, other than making a statement, if we decide not to ratify the order, you know, all we'd be doing is making a statement. It doesn't change the outcome. I would rather, you know, maybe just kind of move forward. You know, I, for one, am neutral. I'd be fine with ratifying the order, but the emergency order, with the understanding that the existing enforcement order will not be rescinded until they come here before us and someone reach out to the recipient of the order and make that clear, so we can, you know, constructively determine what that permanent long-term path is forward.
And also, I think that there will be, this is, I think, is this the second emergency? Yeah, so this is the second emergency cert that we've issued under this enforcement order, so there will not be a third. So get your plan in order by, and maybe we have this as discussion, if you could do a little research of when we actually issued that enforcement order, and then we say, you know, get it by this, or else we're gonna start issuing fines. Because the beavers are gonna come back. This is gonna be another problem within the next 6 months. So I don't want it to be another emergency certification. It needs to be ratifying that enforcement order.
But the good news here is that, unlike last year, all the interested parties have convened. So if nothing else, last year's event served as a catalyst to convene them together.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think we need to kind of close out our old enforcement order, and we don't want to be, you know, an afterthought on how to do that. And I think Caitlin's suggestion of, you know, maybe following up with some conditions on the existing enforcement order, and it will not be rescinded until these things are met, may be the best approach to bring the parties before us, just to kind of do a check and confirm where they're at, you know, for that long-term solution.
I agree with dealing with the enforcement order and getting something from this commission. I can't think of a resource that's more applicable to be heard by the Conservation Commission than a beaver dam, a brook, and a ponding area. And we've been cut out of this whole situation here, and you know, this is not the way to deal with it. So if we can get, you know, the parties in here to try to deal with the enforcement order, I think that's a good start.
And Christine, too, feel free also, I know we're not always the best at site visits, attendance, but a meeting like that, I think a few of us would definitely attend. So if there are any further meetings between those parties, feel free to let us know, and maybe we can come. Yeah. So if we need to make a decision to ratify or not ratify. Christine, if we do not ratify, does that do anything? Or does it just make you look bad or feel bad?
I think it would cause some issues.
Okay.
But again, it's up to the commission whether or not you choose to ratify the emergency certification.
I haven't seen anyone who represented them in over a year, so I would definitely like to have someone come back and hear from them.
But that's separate from that
Yeah,
would
that's
be,
enforcement
that's something we
order.
could address under the existing enforcement order.
I also kind of had some trouble with that wording. What consists of completely taking down the dam or not?
Yeah.
Like, who's to say?
Yeah, if it's 3 feet deep, are we talking about everything but 2 inches of depth?
It's all hearsay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I take a little bit of comfort in is the fact that they're a professional, licensed professional has been retained and presumably would be doing things, you know, in accordance with state law. My sense is, Christie, when you issued the emergency enforcement, I mean, you're probably under the gun and you wanted to have at least something in there. And without being probably a beaver or wetland expert yourself, you know, you put in there at least some kind of generic conditions without a lot of specificity, and that's okay in this situation. But I for one would be okay with offering motion to ratify the emergency action, but at the same time, also kind of to what Caitlin was saying, expecting some sort of follow-up under the existing enforcement order, making clear that it, you know, obviously will remain in place, not rescinded until the violator comes before us and kind of gives an update on what that long-term plans is, so that we can be informed and avoid being in the situation that we're in for the second time.
Third.
Well, now third, yeah.
We didn't get a report from the last emergency, have we?
I don't think there was conditions like that, were there? No. Yeah, there wasn't a condition for the report. There was no conditions, no. So I too get comfort in knowing that all those parties were there, and then what is it, Fish and Wildlife, you said? That they're issuing a 10-day permit. Those guys are tough, and they wouldn't just issue one if they didn't think this was right. So feeling comfortable with that, and then also wanting to be uniform and stick by my agent.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna make a motion to ratify that under those two reasons.
And I will second that ratification.
Any discussion?
No comments. No comments.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to be opposed.
Okay. So the ratification passes.
Passes, yeah.
How do we want to memorialize what do we need to do to kind of officially memorialize next steps on the open enforcement order?
I think we need some communication with them back and forth. I don't know what we've done before. I mean, I don't want to go the fine route, but it's more like you need to come in here by this date or we're going to start issuing fines, which we've done before. I don't know what date we want to pick as a commission.
I don't know, do we need something that strong to get them in? Perhaps if they
No, yeah, but I
are
just,
reluctant to come in, we could mention fines, but,
I guess, let me look, I'm trying to figure out, I think it's too far back. I don't have it in my email. I'm curious to see when we did that original enforcement order. Okay.
Well, to focus on the positive, I mean, like I said, since we did, our role, I think, was really to be a convener of the different parties, and we've brought them together. You know, granted, it would have been nice to be part of the ongoing dialogue, but that conversation did take place. I think all we're really asking for is an update on the outcome of those conversations and where are they going with respect to, you know, a final solution to the issue, so we won't be in this situation next year. I think that's all we're asking for. And so maybe if that's all we're asking, it's just asking our environmental agent to reach out and see what the outcome is. And if they, at the next meeting, if they say, if they've been non-responsive, then I think we can look at what options we have, moving forward after that.
Yeah, I would be in favor of that, as well as having Christine contact the parties involved and inform us of what their situation is.
And I can put together a timeline with updates, because it's a interesting timeline.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, this doesn't have to be adversarial moving forward. It really doesn't. No one needs to be doing any grandstanding. And so, I think it's fair, reasonable, prudent for us to just ask for an update. It is what it is with the existing, emergency action. What's the long-term plan? Glad to hear that there's been, a meeting of the interested parties and there's a path forward. We'd like to know, what that final solution is and when you plan to implement it.
I'd like to actually hear something about perhaps beaver baffle or something to that effect that would keep the water level at a reasonable level. I've seen them work. They say they don't work, but.
Yeah, I've seen,
Does the term busy as a beaver come?
yeah, the flow through beaver dams. I've seen a few flow throughs installed, and those were successful as well.
They don't hear the water, right?
Yeah.
No, they'll still hear the water, but it doesn't matter how high they make the dam, the
It still
water
flows, yeah.
I'd like to correct the vote that we took on this issue. I actually don't have a vote because I'm chairing the meeting, so it would be 4 in favor.
All right.
I think we're good. So
Good. I'll make a motion.
Are there any more comments or concerns? Motion to adjourn,
motion to adjourn.
Second.
seconded by Jeff, and thank you very much.
Go Celtics.